How can we solve transportation problems related to crumbling infrastructure, surging congestion, poor air quality, increasing GHG emissions, and declining revenues? One proven approach is to implement a range of mobility pricing strategies, including road tolls, parking fees, gas taxes, and transit fares. Since this is easier said than done, especially in a COVID-altered world, TransportFutures.ca invites you to learn from and with international experts during our online mobility pricing conversations now underway. The fifth one-hour session, taking place on December 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, features David King, Assistant Professor in the School of Geographical Sciences and Urban Planning at Arizona State University. He and Transport Futures founder Martin Collier will discuss how the once mundane subject of vehicle parking is changing due to new mobility policies, technical innovations, architectural design, and revenue generation opportunities for both the public and private sectors, and what bold approaches are required to meet critical social, environmental, and economic objectives. They look forward to responding to your questions and comments. Join this cutting-edge conversation, co-sponsored by Daily Commercial News, by registering today at transportfutures.ca/mpc. Hello and welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media editor Warren Fry. On this episode, we're bringing you excerpts from a recent building show panel in Toronto, where ConstructConnect Director of News Media Vince Versace held a fireside chat format panel with both LandLogic CEO Arash Shahi and Doug Dockery, ConstructConnect's Chief Technology Officer. The trio discussed the current and future role of AI in the construction industry, where it can help companies do more with less and separate hype from reality in an ever-changing space. Our first clip tackles that head-on, where Dockery says the current pessimistic and utopian views of AI aren't really accurate, and the truth is more in the middle than you'd think.
AI exists in your life now, and it hasn't taken your job, and it hasn't killed you, but it's made you a lot more productive. If you look at the way that AI is being used in construction now, it isn't being used to replace people or replace roles. It's being used to augment people and make them more efficient. When we talk about AI, particularly in the construction space, we talk about things being able to take mundane tasks, counting things, measuring things, finding things, and removing that from the work that the humans have to do so people can do more valuable work, so they can do things that matter. Where do you see that in your current lives? If you step outside of the construction world, where do you see that? Netflix. It watches what you watch. It makes decisions on what you should watch, and it's eerily accurate. Spotify. You ever listen to music? God help you if you use Spotify, because it follows you around then forever, wanting you to listen to other bands that you've never heard of that match the same profile. AI is everywhere in our world right now. It isn't big, it isn't scary, it's just a computer program. And used well, it makes us all a whole lot more productive than we otherwise would be.
In this second clip, Shahi says AI isn't going to take over. Rather, it's going to do the tasks we don't want to do, following the pattern of previous productivity revolutions.
My point of view is that the same way we had the Industrial Revolution and getting machines to come in and help us with the work that we didn't want to do, we see AI doing the same thing in this digital revolution that we are in right now. So you're going to see a lot of tools that can make your data analytics jobs a lot easier, getting data accessible to the masses. That to me is the most important contribution AI can make to construction, at least.
In these next two clips, both Shahi and Dockery break down how companies can find AI tools that work for them.
The way you learn about AI is to use AI. So have you played with ChatGPT? Have you played with Bard? Have you played with Microsoft's Copilot product? You don't have to pay any money to play with those things. Ask them questions. Learn how to talk to the AI. What I see in my industry as a technologist is people are creating the role of AI prompt engineer. So the person that tells the AI what to do and how to do it. And how you ask the question many times determines whether you get a good answer or not. So the first thing I would tell you is go find an AI tool and play with it, because I think that's the most appropriate way to get started. Second thing I would tell you is in the construction space, there are a lot of tools that are building AI into their products now. I'm old enough to remember the .com boom. If you remember that, you could come up with any idea, right? There was a pet company that had a sock puppet of a dog, and they never actually made a product, but they were pets.com or something, and they were worth tens of millions of dollars, and they never actually became a company, and they sold, to a venture capitalist and made a whole bunch of money. I see that in the current environment as well. Organizations stick AI on the end of their product names. So we've always had bottle of water. Now we have bottle of water AI, and it's somehow better, right? All of them aren't like that, though. What does AI look like in construction when it's actually doing things? Go find a company that's doing that. Do a demo of their product. Get something that you can see and play with and learn about and decide if it's useful for you. In the end, a lot of this is really what I said in the beginning. Find something that helps you be more productive, that removes the tedious things that you don't want to do from your life, and go find a tool that takes those things away.
To Doug's point, AI is closer than you think. So it's already embedded in a number of tools you're using, both within the industry and outside. So I think just acknowledging the fact that we have AI available to us, and being able to communicate what is your need. So the moment you can communicate what your data needs are, there's, even in this show right here, there is a handful of organizations that can help you build that AI capability into your day-to-day. So, for example, I come from a real estate background. Having access to real estate data, historical real estate data, and be able to communicate with a chat GPT kind of functionality and say, tell me how much this house is worth, or how much can I rent this property, or what can I build on this parcel of land? Like, these are the conversational questions that AI can bring in. So I think AI is here. I think there is going to be a lot of tools available to the market, and they are today, and they're going to be in the near future. And my one recommendation is to test it out, because with AI, the more you use it, the more people use it, the more useful it becomes.
Shahi, who has a background in real estate, also explained how AI can help improve that industry's productivity and benefit consumers at the same time.
I think when we talk about AI, first we got to talk about I, right? And there's a lot of industries that don't even have a lot of I in them. So real estate is a good example. Just 5-10 years ago, if you wanted to know how much was a house sold, you had to call your realtor, right? So there was a lot of fights, and the real estate boards kind of started giving in, and now sold data is available, right? So with that data now available, the role of real estate agents, for example, become very questioned, right? So can you train an AI that can be your ultimate realtor? And the answer is yes, right? Does it mean realtors go out of work? Probably not, but their job will be very different going forward, right? So imagine if you want to, again, I'm using real estate because that's the most tangible example. Imagine you want to buy a house. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could just ask any questions you had, and then the AI could answer you based on historical data, not just one person's opinion, but actual solid historical data, answer the question. So imagine you're going and seeing a house, and you want to know, well, how much can I rent my basement, right? The realtor can give you an opinion, but wouldn't you want to know historical data in that neighborhood of how much that basement gets rented? That's just an example of it, right? So just continuing what Doug was saying, I think with AI, the most important thing is asking the right question, right? If you can formulate your question, we can guarantee you that there's going to be an answer. It may not be today, but it won't be too long until somebody figures it out, right? So with data accessibility, there's a lot of push on open data. With data becoming accessible, now is the time where AI can really shine. AI has been around for a long time. I mean, there's the people working in AI for 20, 30 years. But you're hearing a lot more about AI now because data has become a lot more accessible and computing power has become a lot more accessible. So I think we're at the point now where we're going to see a lot more functionality out of AI in our day-to-day work that we do, from real estate to all the technical work that we do.
Dockery said while people may not yet trust or rely on AI, he implored them to explore the tools and find out for themselves what works and what doesn't. At one point, he held up his phone to illustrate another technology that just gets out of the user's way and lets them learn and explore.
I think the easiest way to get people involved from a technology point of view is to remove the technical barrier. How many of you have one of these? Everybody, right? The technology of this is incredible, but they've abstracted that away so that it's easy to use. AI is the same. AI can be horribly complex. If you're writing prompts for AI to write code, to create things, it can be a job in and of itself with a special vocabulary and be very inapproachable. The way that I think we solve that problem is what's commonly called natural language processing. Instead of me clicking a bunch of buttons or creating a filter or adding a thing and writing a search string and whatever, what if I could just say, how many construction projects are happening in Cincinnati, Ohio today that require a plumber that are going to use this kind of tooling or fixtures or whatever? And you know what? Instead of just Cincinnati, expand that to a radius of 20 miles around Cincinnati. Go. If I can just talk to it like another person and it could give me an answer, I think it becomes approachable. The real trick, though, is to be able to ask it that second question. And what we find is when we apply natural language processing to things, and we allow you to follow up questions without having to explain it all again. So in my first example, plumber, Cincinnati, radius, fixtures, whatever, I get an answer back. Well, what if I want to, what if I change Delta faucets to something else? Or what if I change this to that, whatever product it is? What if I expand the radius by 10 miles? What if I whatever? I can ask that follow-up question. Hey, how does that change if I change the radius to 30 miles? That's where it becomes approachable. That's where people become involved and invested in this, because it's not technology anymore. It's a conversation. And getting to that conversational point is what we're all working toward. ChatGPT is doing a pretty good job now when it isn't. ChatGPT has been evil lately if you've tried to use it. So you can ask it to make something, and it seems to have developed a personality of its own, and it will occasionally tell you no when you want it to change it. No, that wouldn't be right because I wanted to whatever. It's like, cool, I didn't care what you wanted. I wanted you to do what I wanted you to do. That idea, though, of being able to talk to a technology the way that you would talk to another person is the thing that removes the barrier. It also makes it accessible to a whole lot more people. I'm old, but my parents are still alive. How many of you, so in the United States, we just had Thanksgiving, right? So families come together and whatever. How many of you are the technical support department for your family, right? That generation of persons who is becoming more and more limited, who is becoming, they don't drive as much, they don't travel as much, maybe they've left the workforce. They don't do technology very well. My mom and dad find ways to disconnect remote controls from their television in new and amazing ways that you would not, even begin to comprehend. But they can use AI. They use ChatGPT. They ask it questions about their friends, their schools, their history, things, and it talks to them. It has become a companion. Likewise, If you go to the other end of the spectrum, I have young kids, 8, then 10. They talk to ChatGPT. They've removed that stigma of it's hard to type, it's hard to whatever. They can actually talk to them. Now, they don't talk to it about the same things my parents do. They ask it for sports scores and jokes. But in both cases, we've got groups of people who normally don't adopt technology very quickly that are AI users because it's easy. That's the lesson for the construction industry, in my opinion. The easier we make it, the less scary we make it, the more of a trusted friend instead of a thing that's trying to do something to me that we make it, the more people that use it, the smarter it gets, and the more we all benefit from it.
Shahi pointed out while people have good reasons to be skeptical, it's important to see what the construction industry wants and build tools to make that happen, rather than creating solutions looking for a problem.
So a lot of people are skeptical for good reason. I mean, construction, as we all know, hasn't handled technology very well so far. It's been very difficult to get technology into the construction side, and that's a loaded question, so I'm going to have to unpack that a little.
Go ahead. It's a fireside chat. Like that, go ahead.
When we started ACO and working with University of Toronto before that, we were trying to bring in drones into construction sites, right? And trying to model progress tracking by having drones go through. And there was a lot of pushback from the industry, right? And the number one pushback was, Arash, we know how to build a building. We'll go get me a permit if you can, right? Because that's where I'm spanning 5 years. I got to talk to municipalities. I got to submit this pile of paper, and I got to stay 3 to 5 years before I can get my permit. So if you really want to fix our industry's problem, go fix that problem, right? And that was really good feedback for us, because what's the point of having drones on construction sites if the bottleneck of the industry is something completely different? I think they really need to rethink this. Is no longer a technology question, right? The technology is there. Other industries have gone way ahead of construction. So I think we got to take a pause and understand, what does the industry want, right? And how can we solve those problems first? I can tell you now, if you came up with an AI platform that would guide someone through their permitting process, there would be adoption overnight, because that's a pain point. It's a pain point that everybody has and everybody can relate to. And if you can remove the pain point, then people will use it, right? But if you try to do AI for some sophisticated, fancy use case that you have to spend half an hour explaining what the use case is, then it's going to become very difficult for someone to adopt. So I think if we focus, for those of us who are developing AI, if we can focus the application on what actually matters to the user, I think there could be very immediate adoption of AI. But sometimes we have solutions looking for a problem, and that happens when tech industry comes into construction, right? We have solutions that come to market and trying to find a problem to solve, whereas we have enough problems in the industry. And the Eco Innovation Lab philosophy was basically, let's understand what the problems are. Let's get everybody to sign off on that is the problem, and then we find a solution for that problem. And that's kind of how LandLogic came along, right? So it was this complex development approval process. How can you navigate that? And then you start digging, and then you find out, well, every municipality is storing their data differently, right? So as an applicant, if I want to look at 3 different municipalities, I have to deal with 3 different data sets, 3 different application types, 3 different roles, right? So that's where we focus our efforts. So you know what? How can we make data accessible to the applicant across municipalities? How can we guide the applicant through understanding what do they even need to apply to, right? Give you another example. So when we go to the developer approval process, one of the complaints that we heard from the development industry was that, it takes forever. And then we said, okay, why does it take forever? Well, a year and a half into my application, I just found out I need this other piece of information, right? So if you could tell the applicant, if there was AI or anybody else, we can tell the applicant today, what is it that they're going to need for the application process? I think applicants will pick that up immediately. At the end of the day, if you can pick a problem that actually exists, and if we can solve that with AI, I think the adoption will be very high. I don't think there is any bottlenecks whatsoever.
Finally, both Shahi and Dockery explained how AI can benefit smaller companies and make them more competitive with larger, better financed firms.
So the idea of I'm a two-person firm that can now spin up employees in the cloud that go and do things that make me appear to be a 50-person firm is a really interesting place to be. The catch in that is making sure that the machine does things that the machine's good at, and people do things that they're good at. AI is really, really capable. AI is simply a fancy word for computer programs, right? They've been around forever. AI isn't a new thing. It's just a sophisticated program. Programs are good at repeatable tasks. Programs are good at math. Programs are good at certain things, and they can do those a lot faster than we can. But they lack the lifetime of intuition that people have. They lack emotion. They lack empathy. And for us to be able to assign them tasks that fit their skill set while maintaining control over the things that people are good at, I think is really the answer. If I were a two-person firm, I would go, even if I didn't have any money, I would go to ChatGPT or whatever and start having it write marketing copy, having it answer RFPs for me, write the response for me, have it count things for me so I didn't have to, have it do all of those kind of things, build a website for me. It can do all of those things. Do you have to participate in it? 100%. Do you have to do all the work? No. Do you have to be an expert in any of it? You can build a website without having any knowledge of how to do that, simply by asking it to do it. So I think it makes small firms a lot more competitive, and I think it makes small firms appear to be larger, which is probably a really good thing when you're dealing with general contractors. If they perceive you to be what we lovingly call Chuck with a truck, so one person that, is doing things all by themselves, they treat you in a particular way. If they perceive you to be a much larger, more professional organization, I think they treat you in a different way. And I think AI is the magic to make small firms appear larger, more professional, more capable, and it allows them to win more deals.
I think the well-monetized, well-capitalized have been doing it already. So this is not new, like having data analysts in a big corporation. That's not a new role, right? So I think it's been there for a long time. I think what has changed now, it's become democratized in the sense that the small firms now can have access to it. And I really want to echo what Doc said, because if you're a small firm, you don't have the luxury of large teams of people pulling information for you, right? If you can train your AI to gather that information for you, it can appear, and not just appear, but you can perform equally to a much larger firm if you're using AI correct, right? And so I think the smaller firms really need to get on it. And I think there's two things happening. There's AI, and then there's open data. And I think that it's the combination of the two that's become really interesting, right? Because AI with no data, it doesn't really do much, right? So if you're a small firm and you don't have a lot of data, well, what is AI going to do, right? But with AI now connected to the internet and also data sets becoming open, there's a world of opportunities out there for AI. So as a small firm, I think finding the niche market that you can service and being able to leverage AI to have an online army, if you will, I think that's going to be a big difference.
Thanks again for listening to the podcast. We've included a link to a story in the Daily Commercial News about the building show session if you'd like to learn more. You can listen to the Construction Record podcast on Apple Music, Amazon Music, and Spotify, as well as on Daily Commercial News and Journal of Commerce websites. Thanks again for listening.